Hey fiction writers, welcome to week 8. This is the last week of the class, which makes this the last video, the last set of assignments you're going to get, and one last bit of advice. So today I want to talk about adverbs. Adverbs are a part of speech that modify verbs and adjectives. They describe how something's done and they often end in ly. So quickly, hurriedly, slowly, softly, warmly, angrily, these are all adverbs. But they don't all end in ly. In fact, the word often here, that's an adverb. Why is it an adverb? Because it's modifying the word end, which is a verb. They end. How? Often. They often end. Another adverb that you might not know is an adverb is the word soon. Also very, when you say very quickly. Adverbs modify adverbs also. So how quickly? Very quickly. So these are all adverbs, and they're a great part of speech, but they often get overused. And when they get overused, they have the same kind of effect as what we talked about last week when you have he said, she said, he said, she said, he said, she said at the end of every other line. It starts to distract from what you're actually writing. And it's almost like you have a rhyme going or something kind of in a sing-songy way that affects the way a reader reads the writing and just takes away from it altogether. So we try to limit our saids, and which are the attributives. We try to limit those when we can. Not always. Sometimes they're good. Sometimes they're useful. So there are no absolutes here. You don't want to get rid of all of them, and you don't want to always have them there. So it's the same thing with adverbs. You don't have to eliminate every adverb. There's no reason to never use an adverb. But if there are too many, it does start to take away. And the other thing is that when it comes to word choice, there's often a better way to say something, a more expressive, a more interesting way than throwing in an adverb. So I have a little passage that I found online, and the irony here is that this was actually a recommended revision. Someone had this paragraph with no adverbs and then recommended spicing up the writing by putting in all the adverbs. And it does help to have adverbs. So like I said, you don't have to get rid of all of them, but I wouldn't rely solely on adverbs to spice up my writing. So let's take a look at this paragraph. The man angrily got in the car. He frantically drove his car to the old house. He ferociously walked up to the door and loudly knocked on it. The door opened violently. So here are all of our adverbs. We have angrily. He angrily got in the car. He frantically drove. He ferociously walked up to the door, loudly knocked, and the door opened violently. So 1, 2, there's an adverb in every sentence. There are 2 in this one. That's too many. So what we would do is you need to figure out, if you're trying to communicate that this man is angry, there are other ways to do it. We could change this first one. Instead of the man angrily got in the car, we could say the man got in the car and slammed the door. We could give him some other actions also. With everything, with all of the advice I'm giving you, putting in actions, taking out adverbs, limiting the attributives, it's all about moderation. You have to find your own balance, and like I said, there are no absolutes. But if we're looking at this, I would think it's better to give an action that communicates his anger than to try to do it solely through the adverb. So the man got in the car and slammed the door. Slammed his door shut. Now, how could you communicate that he's driving frantically? He frantically drove. Well, if he's driving frantically, what's the driving going to look like? We might say, get rid of angrily. We might say the car is weaving on the road. We might say that his starts and stops were jerky, that he slammed on the brakes, that he stomped on the accelerator. We might say that he was distracted, he couldn't keep his mind on the road, he's looking all over the place. There are a lot of different things we can say other than frantically. We don't want to get too wordy. We don't want to spend 3 paragraphs on explaining every little action that he does while he's in the car in order to communicate frantically. But if we threw in just a couple, we could replace frantically and get rid of another adverb there. He ferociously walked up to the door. Well, that one sounds odd to me, for one thing. I'm not sure how you ferociously walk. Something like that, I guess, which is probably not what he was doing. So that's just a bad choice because it doesn't really communicate what we want to communicate here. So we could say he clenched his fists as he walked to the door. We could say instead of walked, we could say he strode to the door. Strode to the door, fists clenched. And then instead of loudly knocked, we could say he battered the door with his fist. We could say and knocked, rattling the door. He strode to the door, fists clenched, and rapped so hard the windows shook. All right, and that's loudly knocked. Okay, and then the door opened violently. We could just say the door jerked open. Right? Or we could say the door was whipped open. There are just a lot of ways to say it instead of using those adverbs. So that is the final bit of advice I wanted to offer to you. And I wanted to offer you 2 quotes that I thought were kind of funny on this subject, both from Mark Twain. One thing Mark Twain said is that when you're writing, if you see an adverb, kill it. So you could go and kill a few adverbs. You don't have to kill all of them. Sometimes they're good. Sometimes they're helpful. What you have to avoid is having 5 in 4 sentences. It's too many, and it doesn't always communicate what you want it to communicate. The other thing that Mark Twain said, very is an adverb, and people throw very around a lot, and you don't need it all the time. It can be helpful. But he said what you should do when you're writing is substitute damn for every time you mean very, and then your editor will go through and delete all of the times when you say damn, and then the writing will be just as it should be. Very Twain kind of thing to say. So, this week as you write, consider your adverbs, and don't kill them all. Some of them are perfectly, they fit perfectly well. Some of them are perfectly happy in your writing and they belong and they'll do good work. But you don't want to keep all of the adverbs if you have a lot of them and if you can communicate it in a different way that doesn't distract your writer. Your reader doesn't distract your reader. Okay, so this week, focus on your word choice. Try to choose words that really communicate what you want them to. Submit your final pages to me by next Sunday, which is May 12th, and I will get those back to you within the next week from then. So you should have them back by the 19th. And the other thing, there are 2 other things actually. The back channel chat still contains a couple of people's emotion scenes. If you haven't put one in there yet, it's not too late. And I would love to see people guess at what the emotions are that are being conveyed there. And the other thing is, I am going to put into the back channel chat any work from people who have sent me pieces that they would like to share. So you will have a chance also to read your fellow students' work and to comment on that. So I would like you to do both of those things this week. I know I have at least one person who has sent me things, and it's wonderful. So you should all take a chance, take a moment to read that and give her some feedback. She's worked hard and deserves a little feedback from everybody. So that's it for this week. That's almost it for the class. Oh, one other thing. I do have a survey about the class I would like you to complete, and that will help me in teaching it later. And it's anonymous. It's an online survey. Probably take you 5 minutes, definitely not 10. Probably just 5. So if you can fill that out for me, and I won't know who wrote what, so please feel free to be critical. Tell me what I need to hear, and I can improve the class for future generations. Okay, thanks a lot. Take care.